Right now, your brain is doing something no other brain on this planet can do. It is reading these words, processing the meaning behind them, wondering what comes next, and simultaneously judging whether this is worth your time. All of that is happening in about a tenth of a second. And the strange part is, the brain doing all of that, the one sitting inside your skull right now, is almost identical to the brain your ancestor had 100,000 years ago, squatting in a cave, trying not to get eaten. That should bother you more than it does, because almost everything around you has changed. The tools, the cities, the language, the food, the medicine. Everything you interact with today was built in the last few thousand years, but the hardware processing all of it has barely moved. You are running a 100,000-year-old operating system inside a world that upgrades every decade. And that gap, that mismatch between ancient wiring and modern life explains more about your behavior than you probably want to admit. So what did that brain actually look like? And why does it still matter today? Start with the basic. 100,000 years ago, your ancestor had a brain roughly the same size as yours, around 1,400 cubic centimeters, the same folds, the same lobes, the same basic architecture. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard has spent decades studying the evolutionary pressures that shaped the human brain, and one of his central arguments is that the big cognitive leap did not come from a sudden mutation. It came from fire, from cooking. When early humans started processing food with heat, they unlocked more calories from the same amount of food. More calories meant more energy for a metabolically expensive brain to burn, a brain that runs on roughly 20% of your total calorie intake despite being only 2% of your body weight. That is the most expensive organ in the history of life on this planet, and your ancestors found a way to fuel it. But here is the thing. Fueling a brain and knowing what to do with it are very different problems. 100,000 years ago, your brain was not thinking about deadlines. It was not running calculations about retirement savings or comparing prices online. It was solving a much older, much more urgent problem: survival. Every cognitive resource your ancestor had was pointed at one question: what is a threat and what is not? Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux at New York University spent years mapping what he called the fear circuitry of the brain. The amygdala, two small almond-shaped clusters buried deep in your temporal lobes. They are fast, brutally fast. Before your conscious mind has even registered what you are looking at, your amygdala has already fired a threat signal. It is a system built for a world where hesitation cost you your life, where the rustle in the grass might be a predator, where the stranger approaching from the other side of the valley might be an enemy. That system is still running in your head right now. Every time you feel a spike of anxiety before a presentation, every time you check your phone compulsively, every time you feel a surge of anger at something a stranger said online, that is not weakness, that is not irrationality, that is a 100,000-year-old survival system doing exactly what it was built to do, in a world it was never designed for. Your brain did not evolve to handle 1,000 notifications a day. It evolved to track a handful of relationships in a group of about 150 people. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar proposed this number in the 1990s based on a simple observation. Across primate species, the size of the neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex social cognition, correlates directly with average social group size. For humans, that calculation produces a number of around 150. Not 5,000 Facebook friends, not 200,000 followers. 150 people whose faces you know, whose motives you track, whose loyalty you can count on. Beyond that number, your brain starts to lose resolution. The social map gets blurry. And here is what that means practically. When you feel overwhelmed in a crowd, when you feel vague unease about people you have never met, when you feel strangely close to strangers you follow online. All of that is your Dunbar-wired brain trying to apply ancient social software to a modern social world it was not built for. But the mismatch goes even deeper than that. 100,000 years ago, your brain lived in what psychologists now call a high feedback environment. You acted, you immediately saw the result. You threw a spear. You either hit or you missed. You planted something. It either grew or it did not. The feedback loop was short and direct. Your reward system, the dopamine circuitry running through your nucleus accumbens, was calibrated for that kind of world. Do something. Get a result. Feel the signal. Adjust. Now look at your life. You send an email and wait 3 days for a reply. You work for months on a project and do not know if it succeeded for years. You make a health choice today whose consequences might not appear for decades. Your brain was not built for that kind of delay. It was built for immediacy, and when it does not get it, it goes looking for shortcuts. That is why social media is so difficult to put down. Every scroll is a tiny action with a tiny immediate result. A like, a comment, a new piece of information. Your ancient reward system gets a small hit of dopamine and immediately wants another. Not because you are weak, because you are human, because your brain is running the same reward circuit that once told your ancestor to keep looking for berries, to keep scanning the horizon, to keep checking, keep moving, keep seeking. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who studied peak human experience for decades, argued that the closest modern humans get to the cognitive state our ancestors lived in constantly is what he called flow. That total immersion in a task that is just challenging enough to hold your full attention without overwhelming you. It turns out the brain does not just tolerate tolerate that state. It craves it because for 100,000 years, that was the normal state. Focus, present, solving the problem directly in front of you. And then your brain invented civilization, and flow became something you had to schedule. Here is the part that most people do not expect. The brain that walked out of Africa 100,000 years ago was not just a survival machine. It was already doing something else. Something that had no direct survival value at all. It was making art. The oldest confirmed examples of abstract art, ochre engravings found at Blombos Cave in South Africa, date to around 75,000 years ago. Perforated shell beads used as personal ornaments date to at least 100,000 years ago. These were not tools. They were not food. They did not help anyone run faster or fight harder. They were expressions of something internal, something that needed to come out and be seen. Your ancestor, with the same brain architecture you have right now, looked at the world and felt compelled to respond to it creatively. That impulse did not disappear. It is in you right now. The urge to make something, to express something, to leave some mark that says you were here and you noticed things. Every song ever written, every building ever designed, every story ever told, that all traces back to a mind that was already doing this 100,000 years ago, long before it had any obvious reason to. So here is where this lands. The brain you are using right now is not a modern instrument. It is an ancient one that has been handed down, nearly unchanged through hundreds of thousands of years of human lives. It was shaped by hunger and threat and fire and 150 people you knew by name. It was built for a world of immediate consequences and physical challenges and dark nights full of uncertain sounds. It was not built for this, for the sheer volume and speed and abstraction of modern life. And yet here it is, doing its best, firing ancient warnings at digital stimuli, running tribal loyalty software on a global social network, searching for flow in a world built on interruption. Understanding that gap does not fix it, but it changes something, because when your anxiety spikes for no obvious reason, when your attention fragments despite your best intentions, when you feel restless in a life that should feel comfortable, you are not broken. You are ancient. You are running the same mind that painted cave walls and tracked stars and buried its dead. A mind that was remarkable 100,000 years ago and is somehow still trying to make sense of a world it never saw coming. The brain that stared into a fire 100,000 years ago, wondering what was out there in the dark, is the same brain you used this morning to pick up your phone and check what you missed while you were asleep. The questions have just gotten harder.